This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, any other additions? Okay, with that, with the one addition, I would ask for an approval of the agenda.
Moved.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor McCrory. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the agenda is approved with the one addition. So we have our next item, which is presentations, and we do have two presentations this evening. I'd like to welcome Stan Johnson, who is a coordinator for Seppi, and he's going to give us a presentation about the wonderful work that Seppi does. So I'll hand things over to you, Stan. And
all right, thank you, Mayor.
Are you? Can you hear all right? Everything's good from your end?
Yep. Can you hear me good?
You're good. You're perfect. Thanks so much. I'll hand things over to you.
Awesome. All right, so I'll start by thanking you very much letting us present to council this evening. Recently here tonight is presenting for Seppi and Bidaba. And I don't know, are we getting feedback or something here?
All right.
Sure. You see how Dave's computer's on it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
would ask all members.
Terry's just going to mute the caller from his end.
I'd ask all members to turn off your mic unless you're presenting, please. And I'm going to I'll disable that.
What did you say to Jeremy? Did you tell him to shut the door? No.
Thanks, Terry. Sorry about that, Stan.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much. It's just the reason we're here tonight is just to talk about Seppi a bit and tell you what we've been up to over the years. And also, I've had Bidaba here with me, so you can tell the difference between the two groups. So I'll start with Seppi, a little history of Seppi. In the early 70s, as you can see the picture of the old Eskizone oyster farm, a lot of our elders used to be worried about how herring were spawning in different parts of the lake and how they weren't doing this. And they were noticing a lot of changes around the lake. They were really recognizing there was climate change was really happening. And with our people, this climate change has been happening for thousands of years, and we've always adapted to it. So you move the slide to the next one. Okay, click the slide. Okay, in the early years, to establish up the Still Division Wildlife Commission in Eskizone, go back, as gated to order sustainable harvest and fishery resources for the Mi'kmaq communities out on the Bedore Lake. And they also do some scientific research as well. They do a lot of research on the oyster MSX disease that was decimated the lake there a few years ago, which already is, and there's a lot of research going on with it now. Actually, we got some elders up in Waikagma that's actually found a way where he's oyster leases. He's got 95% survival rate, whereas the rest of the lake with like 90% mortality. So he's got something there, and through the two I'd seen, him and CB are actually working on a project together to figure out why he's got it sorted out, and they haven't figured it out yet. So. This is just the early years of EFWC started back then. Go to the next slide. Then you'll see the Mi'kmaq Institute of Natural Resources was established back in 1999. This is the board for this EYNR is made up to 5 chiefs around the lake, and it continues to grow. And right now, it's recognized nationally as one of the leading scientific organizations that does research around bodies of water, lake and rivers and streams. It's just and we have a lot of young scientists that are growing up in the community and actually working in this organization. And that's actually who the secretary is for the Seppis. Okay, can you move to the next slide, please? All right, in '91, they had a conference on the Bedore. Basically looked at the future of the Bedore Lake was and was to find a model for sustainability. And they're looking for identifying the key elements of a managed plan or some kind of plan to harness like momentum towards action. Like a lot of people are concerned about the lake, not just the Mi'kmaq people or the scientists around the lake as well. So they started to identify what could be done with the Bedore to move forward in it. So the next slide, please. In 2003, at the beginning of Seppi, basically a workshop was held in Wamco to start the design of a management plan for the Bedore Lakes. Back then, I don't know if you knew our chief back then, Charlie Joe Dennis, was used to be the director of UINR, and he ended up being the chief in Eskizoni as well. And he was a really charismatic individual, and he had a real rapport with the government officials, and he had a way with getting people to work with him, and not just himself, but with the communities as well. So what they did was they had a conference in 2003. Move to the next slide, please. And this conference was made up of like chiefs, senior government officials, and over 100 delegates attended this meeting. This was held in Walmart. Next slide, please. On the next, okay. And here you see the group of basically just a picture of the event there happened. And this event had like RDGs, the regional director generals, people from DFO, like DNR, all these organizations, CBU, NSCC, all the people that are scientists are involved all around the lake and trying to figure out what could be done, like what's the next steps. So could you move to the next slide, please? In 2004, after the meeting was held with the scientific people and the regional director generals and the chiefs, wardens, and all these people, they had a workshop with the grassroots people around the lake, and anybody that had concerns around the lake was invited to the meeting. There were over a couple hundred people there. The engaged citizens on the village had like how the future, what the future of the lake was going to be. How could we keep it pristine and move like sustainable as we're trying to move forward today. Next slide, please. In 2005, Seppi was born. Basically, UINR, which I was talking about earlier, an institution that was made up of the 5 Mi'kmaq groups. That was endorsed to play a coordination role. Basically, they were the secretariat for the Seppi. Basically, they house all our administrative stuff. Because you see now, Seppi is made of me and Ron Newcomb. We're 2 of us. There's a lot going on with Seppi all the time, but we have like, I like to tell people that we have like an octopus's arms. We've basically a lot of partners, a lot of friends, a lot of organizations that have a passion for the lake, which is what Seppi is made of, right? So, so at that time here, that's when Seppi was born. It basically was made up of the 4 different levels of government: the federal, provincial, municipal, and the First Nation. Next, please. Here you see the Seppi Charter. Now, after they had that meeting in 2004 and 2005, they had a big celebration, and this charter was signed. Basically, this charter basically is signed by all the 4 levels of government. So basically, this charter states that it's got our vision and guiding principles on it, and it's got some statements up on. As you see, it's got like the 4 colors, the 4 directions, gives sort of like the medicine wheel concept. So this was a charter, and this paper here, this charter here, Dan Christmas, who's our chair, he's actually the senator as well. He figures, and they think that this is probably the only one of its kind in Canada, if not the world, this kind of documentation, whereas we got 4 levels of government all working towards the same cause. And basically, it's the well-being of the Bordeaux Lake and the people in the watershed and the plants and everybody that lives all around it as well. So next slide, please. The Seppi, currently we have a functioning organization model, which at the top level we have the senior council, which meets twice a year. The management committee, which meets monthly, a steering committee that meets quarterly, and then we have task teams, a youth council, the elder council, and Mi'kmaq elder advisor. And the task teams we have basically after we had the conference a couple of years ago. I'll talk to that in a little bit, but these task teams are have members from the steering committee and other organizations that want to join our groups to move toward a cause. If we have I'll tell you what we're working on in a minute. So right now we have forestry, like tourism, recreational fishing, and aquaculture. And right now the forestry and the tourism model is going to be starting up this year. The forestry is already started. We started that one 2 years ago. Our recreational fishing and aquaculture is another initiative that we're working on. And then tourism and Barishwal Pond Task Team will be working on this year. So that's other initiatives like that. Task teams that will have different people on them from different organizations, different groups that are our partners all around the lake. Next, please. Some of our past projects, like this year, we did over the years, like in marine and freshwater quality work reports. Back in 2005-07, we had a TK workshop, Traditional Environment Ecological Knowledge Workshop with Yuma non-native elders in 2006. We had a CSI, Collaborative Salmon Initiative Stewardship, which actually CSI actually still runs today. It's an offshoot from Seppi. It started as a Seppi file, and it actually moved out to its own now. So we're made up of a lot of people up from our area and all this area. So it's a nice organization that does a lot of work around the lakes and keeping the salmon populations working fine. And then we had an ecosystem overview and assessment report, plus inclusion of the environmental knowledge report in 2007. The land use development standards report was developed in 2008, and the handbook as well. Right now, look, we know that the municipalities actually have something going on in the back. We're asked to start developing some kind of standards for development around the lake, like for setbacks and vertical, horizontal, that kind of stuff. So we're looking at maybe bringing that back. We've also having talks with the province as well. They're having the Coastal Protection Act is coming down, so we're seeing where those two we cross between the Coastal Protection and where our development standards are. Where can we actually work together and maybe work together with the municipalities around the lake to develop some type of standards to work within development. So that's what we're working on. That's just a piece of it there. We just had a little meeting yesterday, and that will move on in the future as well. And then we had established up the ORB organization representing the Badors. Basically, we have like a little organization where we all meet together, little groups that are doing projects around the Badors. Nobody basically doing the same stuff over and over again, so everybody knows what's going on. And then we had a scenario-based plan for changing the climate, a climate change plan that was done around the lake for some communities, how the climate change levels are going to be in the future. And that was done by INR with Seppi. Next slide, please. Must be running out of time pretty soon. I want to do this pretty quick. In 2011, the Spirit Up the Lakes document was developed. Now, this document is basically our management plan for the Bureau of Lakes. If you read the document, and it's available on our website too, but Brenda, I'll give some for your office for copies. And this is actually a great document. When you read about this document, the lake to us, to our people, is a living entity. And this document here, when you read it, it's actually a lake talking to you and telling you how, like, how management of the lake would be done better by people working together collaboratively. So if you read this document, it's really interesting. That's our guiding principles that we developed from this document. It's we got the medicine wheel concept, and we allowed to do 2 scene approaches on it. So we'll summarize all the work that was done up to 2007 with Seppi with this document. Next one, please. In 2011, as you know, there's a biosphere on the Bador Lake now, United Nations and Bador Lake BRA. I'm actually a member of it. And next, please, is just to let you know that we're part of that, and Seppi was part of it. In 2016, we had the People Up the Lake Speak Conference, the Sustainable Development Conference around the Bador. This was based on the Ivany report that was done basically when Dan Christmas noticed, like a lot of our younger people, as we all know, are moving out west, leaving our areas. So what we looked at was develop a conference. Basically, how can we work projects around the lake that are that would bring people back to, like, how can we develop sustainable development projects around? And we looked at 6 minor pillars of development that we knew if you develop any of these, you would sort of have an effect on the environment. It was forestry, tourism, recreation, fishery, agriculture, renewable energy, agriculture, and mining. Now, we've done forestry and recreational fishery already and tourism as part of our task teams that'll stemming from after the project, after the conference. So that is our current initiatives we're working on now. Next, please. Next slide. Okay, here we go. Okay, go back one. Okay, now here we at the forestry task team was developed. Recreation forestry task team was talking about development. Youth conference was held in Port Hawkesbury. Actually, remember a couple of years ago, was supported by the town. We thank you very much, as well as the NSCC there, and it was attended by over 200-300 youth. And one of the initiatives that the youth wanted to do as well was develop their own climate change youth conference. So after we had the conference with the biosphere, they wanted to have their own. So we were actually working with the youth now and helping them trying to develop something. So we'll be probably be asking it'll help again and once we get this part formed again later on. So Tracy Marshall, who works with our team there, is the youth representative, but I'll give you more info on that later. Next, please. Here's the conference we had in Port Hawkesbury, changing climates and changing economies. It was well attended, over 100 plus youth, and we talked about that already. I think I'm running out of time pretty soon, so we'll move on to the next one. And next, we have Seppi Youth, now represented at the steering committee, senior council, and actually at ACAP level and the biosphere level. So we have Seppi Youth injected in all of those different organizations. So Seppi Youth actually does all this stuff. The Port Hawkesbury to support Seppi Youth workshops around the Brewer Lake. They do plastics. They did a plastics workshop at Ocean North last year. They collected from water all around the lake, and they were determined that there's actually microplastics around the lake. It's kind of crazy that you think about that, but it does happen everywhere. They're going to have 4 more workshops this summer, and then they'll be working recycling programs all around the lake. They had a big social media campaign going on, some work last year, so they're being pretty busy. Next, please. In 2019, last year, we had co-hosted the Biosphere Forum with Brewer Lake Biosphere. It was attended by like 18 biospheres across Canada, as well as the Indigenous circle of people that came. It was a 3-day event in Bedeck and Cook, and it was well attended. It was awesome. There's and the output of the conference was to develop like the guidelines for sustainable development around biosphere. So we have a guidebook that was developed and we'll share it with your council as well. When I get back to the office, I'll make sure we get a copy for everybody. Next. A lot of things we do is we share what Seppi's doing. We had a lot of calls from across the country and other different organizations. They want to develop similar governance structures as we are. So we've got a shared project with Queen's University. It's a big project they're working on for 5 years now. And basically, they're studying how IT and indigenous knowledge can work with renewable energy projects around the country, and how we can actually reconcile not just the people reconciling, but actually reconcile people with the land as well. And then we did information at how we thrive conference, and Winnipeg Indigenous Lake Collective. We had some presentations there. Ottawa River Watershed, another one in BC. So next one, please. So we've gained notoriety over the years. We're working on a project now. It's a species at risk project that's being done around the lake now. Our past assistant Tristan Simon's running it now. We'll give you more information on that. And you know, like Institute of Natural Resources is running an IPCA project. What there are indigenous protected conservation areas that are actually picked by the Mi'kmaq people themselves, where they figure, like right now they're working at a spot around the the Bluescap Cave area. So that area will be studied, as well as around the watershed area around the Iski Zone area. So they'll be working on that, and then we're looking at one for the Brewer Lake maybe later on in the future. Then we're working on the Seppi Forestry project, which I was telling Tristan Simon's working on. And what they're doing there now is actually looking at what kind of effects forestry has upstream, downstream, and like they say, before a project starts, they're doing testing in the water during the project's happening and after it happens. So see what kind of effects forestry has on the lake and the watershed area. So that'll be an interesting project. Right now, we're setting up a sports recreational fishery coordinator position that's coming out of Seppi. We'll bring that out. Seppi and the Biosphere are actually working on a project called Explore the Bador. It's basically going to be a citizen science project around the lake with bike rides, boat rides, going on with week-long activities, all sorts of nice events all around the lake. Susanna Fuller and ourselves and the Biosphere are actually working together on this. We're trying to get people all around the lake to have activities happening. This happened around the end of August, end of July, first week of August. This will be happening. I'll actually email you guys the latest concept paper, and as well, there's a job description going out for a project coordinator for this position as well. So this is an exciting time. We're sort of trying to get this as a sort of like healthy colors on the lake kind of concept. So it'll be kind of fun. And then we're looking at the tourism task team and development standards. I talked about the benefits by working with us on this, and those will be the Coastal Pacific Zone and Coastal Pacific Action Plan coming down. Like maybe we can all work together on this and develop our own. Next, please. The stuff the following here is like just Brenda, you know more about this stuff here. We're having our senior council meeting in the next couple of weeks. I don't want to get into much detail with this. I've taken up a lot of your time already, but this is basically this year's notional budget, notional work plan. When we have to two senior council in the meeting, in the first meeting, we do the notional budget, notional work, basically our wish list for the year, what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. And then when our second meeting comes, that's when we actually come in with our real budget and our real work plan. Actually, this is what we're going to do based on what's coming down the pipe or what kind of programs are available. So right here, you see, this is the notional budget. This is our revenue over Seppi here. This is what comes in basically from different groups. And as you can see here, town of production, we got here there. Victoria County usually puts in some money. Richmond, Inverness actually just contacted us. Keith did, at least they're going to contribute this year. The First Nation band usually contribute all the time. So you see like that, we're on about a $309,000 budget. Next, please. The first phase of the budget, the money spent on institutional matters, basically where we do all core activities of Seppi, like we conduct meetings, organizing meetings, not internal meetings, but meetings with our CAP and other groups that we work with. We work with other organizations like CAP, Seppi, Bilba, or Blue Dot, NSCC. And then we have just work with other organizations around the lake that have the same initiatives and goals as Seppi. Next, please. Now here's our institutional and the expenses. So this part here, when we talk about the institutional part, the meetings and all this stuff, this is basically the budget here for that kind of stuff here. So these are meetings, team meetings, coordinated travel, like hospitality conferences. We have budget for catering and all this kind of stuff, and professional development as well. Please. Now the second part of our budget is broken down into color codes. So Brenda will give you like the copy we have, but this is basically the social cultural page where we engage Seppi stakeholders, evaluate and seek guidance, direction on our work plan. We work with other groups. We conduct education and awareness to other groups on environmental awareness and importance. The CHR practice where we actually meet with these groups around the country and work with 2IC at the national level to try to get them to 2IC and actually gone a long way in the last few years. Next one, please. I think my 10 minutes are up pretty soon. But this is the cultural budget here. Basically, this will be available to you. Brenda will get a copy of all the budgets and the work plan. So next, please. In environmental awards, this is area where we present like Seppi Golden Awards, environmental groups, individuals, organizations, institutions. So we do it every year. As we all know, 2020 was kind of crazy. So none of all this stuff happened. So and working with Biosphere Forum on the next steps after the conference, working with that Municipality one-off project, and work with Seppi Youth, and then we're working on the Barishaw task team. Next, please. Here's the environmental priorities budget. Like I was telling you, it's pretty well listed here, basically like the other ones, and they break one down into percentages of the coordinators, like the youth coordinator, elder advisor, and all this percentage. It gives you an idea of like how much everybody works. So, and then we have the economic Seppi forestry. We are a good partner, right? Oceans North. They're actually providing us with some funding and some work to do some monitoring and monitoring activities around the lake and on the watershed. So, and then recreation and fishery agriculture task team, we're looking at different levels of activity in recreation, fishery, and agriculture in the lake, and provide a gap analysis and future needs, and develop. We're looking at maybe developing some. Okay, next one. Same with the budget here. We won't talk about next one. Yeah, this is just the budget for the economic priorities. As you can see, tells you where the money goes and where it comes from. Next, please. And that's the total expenditure, so they tell you that we balance. And then as you guys are and all the other organizations around the lake, we got this quote from an elder Albert Murray. We have many partners all around the lake with us. So Albert expressed in one of his statements. If we all work together, there's absolutely nothing we cannot do. And basically, Enigma, what he said was, so I think what he said in Enigma there was a little more stronger than what I can say it in English, but it was really nice. Next. And thank you with all y'all mercy and God be there. Okay.
Bilal and Stan.
Question.
Yeah, so I guess your presentation is a testament to the sheer volume of work that Seppi does. And Stan, how many staff with Seppi?
Me and Ron.
It's incredible.
It's me and Ron. And,
yeah, it's incredible
Garrett
that
on the forestry project, and then we got Tristan seconded to the other one.
It is an incredible amount of work, and I know our council has economic development as one of our strategic priorities. And what I really appreciate, of course, in addition to all the environmental initiatives and the commitment to sustainability and ensuring that we are securing the long-term future of the Bredor Lakes for 7 consecutive generations. I guess what I really think will resonate with our council, as well as the looking for ways to keep our youth here and to attract our families back to Cape Breton, and how do we develop our island, especially around the Bredor Lakes, in a very sustainable and green way, so that we are, you know, balancing our economic futures with our environmental sustainability now for our grandchildren, for our grandchildren's grandchildren. So I have all kinds of wonderful things to say about the work that Seppi does, and I know that Senator Dan Christmas and his commitment to Seppi and his commitment to building a sustainable and green future for our island, for Unama'ki and Cape Breton is really commendable. So at this time, I would ask if council has any questions that you might like to ask Stan or Ron. I know he covered a lot of material, but Jason's nodding. Jason, do you have any questions? Jason is new. I guess, Jason, just to introduce you to Stan and Ron, Jason is our newest addition to council as of the most recent municipal election. So he's probably, this is the first time he's heard of Seppi and the work that's being done around the Bredor Lakes. But do you have any questions or comments?
Just a comment through you, Your Worship, to Stan and Ron. Looks like you're a little bit busy. I frequent the Bredor Lakes quite often, so I appreciate the work you're doing. There was a lot of information there. I'm looking forward to going over the package again once it's shipped out to us and go over it. But again, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I know Councillor MacIver is here on the call, and I know he's probably had frequent conversations with Waddy Long, who he works with at NSCC. And Waddy is also quite passionate about the work that Seppi does, and has been very engaged on the forestry side of things as well.
Yes.
Just maybe, Councillor MacIver, do you have any questions or comments? You probably have multiple conversations with Waddy over the years.
Yeah, Waddy and I talk about it quite a bit whenever we get together, but and I've seen the presentation, and it's a lot of good work and a lot of hard work, and I appreciate it for Stan and Ronald for coming and giving the presentation to us again. So thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, if there is anything that we can do, if you wanted to do another gathering here with the youth, it's a part 2 to the Seppi Youth Conference. We'll definitely be willing to see what we can do to help collaborate and help make that happen. Whether it's a hybrid model of or whether it's waiting till it's a little bit safer for gathering, just let us know. Deputy Mayor McCrory, do you have any comments or questions?
Through you, your worship, to Stan and Ron, thank you very much for the presentation. I just curious, one of the slides back, you were showing contributions from various organizations, and I think I understood you to say Inverness County is looking to get back into making a contribution after not doing so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know how much?
5,000, I think. Like we asked from municipalities 5,000 each to contribute. It's like the same with the First Nations as well. So.
Yeah.
And then there's various levels from the government organizations. Yeah.
Sure. And Richmond County contributes as well?
Richmond hasn't, but they want to get back. Like I think they got their things back in order over there.
Okay. All right.
We'll be making presentations to everybody. So we're actually meeting with CBRM Thursday, and then next week we've got all 5 councils slated the next 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right.
And just for context, Deputy Mayor McCrory, I participate on the senior council. I think we have two senior council meetings a year. And all 5 Unamagi chiefs and typically the mayors and wardens from all 5 municipal units get together with provincial delegates as well as federal delegates as well. Yeah, and staff. And of course, Albert Marshall. So Albert, Dr. Albert Marshall, he would be the elder advisor to Seppi. That's correct, Stan?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess just for the benefit of council, could you, like, I know you made a couple of references to two-wide seeing. I'm not 100% sure if council is aware of that. That's a concept that I think Dr. Albert Marshall kind of coined, and maybe if you could describe what that means for the benefit of council.
Basically, two-wide seeing is if you take on any projects or you look at anything, basically what we look at it with the traditional lens of our people, whereas looking at it from the environmental sustainability lens, and we're looking at it from the Western side perspective, the science and the knowledge that are both put together. So when we look at projects together, like the two-wide seeing project we talked about now with Joe Google and Albert, whereas Joe realized something, it's just him doing all the stuff over the years of how he did these oysters, how they've survived. And then now we're taking the university, we're taking all the science that they have, and actually we'll marry those two together and then figure out how is this happening? Like, why is there 90% mortality around the lake where this guy has 95% success rate? So that's just like one of the examples of two-wide seeing of looking at things. Basically looking at it from the traditional lens and looking at it from the Western science lens and combining those both to make the best of both worlds.
Thank you, Stan, for that. And Councillor McDougall, did you have any questions or comments?
No, just thanks for your presentation, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
And did you want to kind of give a little bit of a descriptor for PETA? I guess we'll
actually we'll let Paul do that.
some time for that. Oh, hi, Paul.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you, Your Worship, for having us on the agenda. I know you have a pretty busy schedule, and, you know, we appreciate you putting us on here. Do you have our slides? Hello? Oh yeah. So, Baduba is a concept, is a Mi'kmaq term, which means flowing into oneness. And this was a term that was given to us by the elders when we consulted them in 2000 to form this group. So the idea was to get the municipalities and the First Nation communities that surround, all of Cape Breton, Unamagi, together at the table. So we meet once a month, and we've been meeting by Zoom lately. And so our goal basically is looking at that same kind of a approach of looking at the holistic aspect of the Vidor Lakes in not just the environmental aspect of it, but the social and economic aspect, because they all link together. And so anyway, if you can go to the next slide, so it is a very unique partnership in that, there's this shared goal. And I think the knowledge that we have with a combination of traditional knowledge and scientific knowledge, with all the different partners that we have access to through Seppi and the UNIR, it's a really good group uh, for us to look at potential projects in your own community. So if you just go to the next slide, we'll probably introduce you to. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of put this uh, slide up here because we've had some wonderful people in the past that were uh, instrumental in getting or providing help for Baduba. Russell Marshall, he was the chief of Potlatech. Charlie Dennis, Merdina Marshall, she was very helpful in giving us support and giving us stories. Of course, Weldon Bona, who was our communication director, who passed away, and we also had Anthony Morris, who represented UNIR and Seppi on Baduba. So I just want to kind of make sure that we do remember these people, and maybe we'll do something a bit more formal in the future. Okay, we'll go to the next one, please. Yeah, so look at that. We got some pictures. Yeah. So I've been trying to get pictures of our counselors so that people get to know each other. Also, the other idea of this this PowerPoint presentation, is to have each member have it so that they can do their own, use it as a talking points, if they want to introduce Baduba to their own councils. So we have Stephen Gugu from Wakaba. We have John McClellan, who just joined us. I haven't met him yet. We have Jason Piero from Wagner-Cook. Okay, I guess we can go to the next one. I want to get a quote from everybody. Oh, look at that. There's Paul McNeil from Victoria County. Paul has been with us for quite a long time, and his expertise is very helpful on the group. We have Bertram Bear Bernard from Escazone. We have Steve Parsons from CBRM. He's also new, Steve. And we have Cyril McDonald, also new. And so we're just kind of going through an orientation phase with some of our new members. Graham Marshall, relatively new, representing member 2. Okay. And then we have our chair, which is Shirley McNamara. She used to be a counselor in Richmond, but she has been with Baduba ever since it started. And so, and she's a wonderful at keeping the meetings in order, and she's very knowledgeable of a lot of things. So we're happy to have her. And there's Your Honor, Brenda Chisholm-Beaton, also kind of reinstated, and Basil Johnson from Potlatech. So we have a full group of members now. Every municipality and First Nations is now has a representative, so we're really happy about that. We have a support group that we all attend the meetings. We have Stan Johnson. We have Billy Taylor from UNIR, who is our finance person. Lisa Young, she's the director at the UNIR, and she plays an important role and has been with Baduba for a long time. Jason Catul from Health Canada. Ron Newcomb, who's here with us from Seppi, and I act as the coordinator. Even though I do live in Dartmouth, I've been managing to coordinate everything via Zoom meetings and everything. So we're doing pretty good. I like to come to Cape Breton though in person. Our family moved to New Waterford in 1967, so Cape Breton is very dear to my heart. Okay, so when Baduba started, the initial issues that we wanted to address were sewage issues, and they came from different sources. Uh, Overflow from treatment plants during storms that that weren't able to hold the capacity. Uh, they weren't built properly, or they needed to be upgraded. Uh, Discharge from recreational boaters, that was another one, and inadequate sewage disposal from some cottages. Okay, so next one, please. So, of course, as you know, we've seen a lot of impacts because of the sewage, where in some coves you might get a little increased algae growth. Of course, there's the health risks, and then we talked about the oyster fisheries, and I'm sure I mean, oysters are filters, and they take everything, and sewage, it really affects their living in the ecosystem properly. And I think one of the things that we should look at is kind of what we want to do is go back to some of these cottages and see if they're still, having adequate sewage, on-site sewage, because usually we don't have inspectors from the Department of Environment going and checking, but if somebody complains or something, then that somebody will go out and then things happen. But I think we need to be a bit more proactive. So hopefully that'll be one of our future projects. Okay, so next one. Yes. So we installed pump out stations on in many areas along the shores on docks, and we provided maps for boaters so that they could find them, so they can go and discharge their septic tanks. And we worked on upgrading sewage treatment plants. The one in Waikagama was the one that we spent a lot of efforts on, and we had a lot of good partnerships, and a lot of studies were done. And as a result of that treatment plant project we had in Waikagama, we there was an MOU that was signed between Inverness County and Wakaba, and it was the MOU was bigger than the treatment plant. It it accommodated for more cooperation on other things, and as a result of some facilitation work and bringing the communities together, people were saying, "Oh, now we say hi to each other when we go to the co-op," So that was kind of nice to see. Um, so another, of course, climate change has been the big focus for us in the last few years. We had a project where we mapped all the coastlines around the Bredor and looked at, there was a risk assessment done. Maybe you should go to the next slide. I don't know if it, okay, yeah. So they, what was, there was a engineer's protocol that was used to assess where there's going to be impacts on the Bredor Lakes due to the raising of the water. And unfortunately, a lot of the treatment plants and infrastructure work is in the area where future water level rises are going to be affecting these places. So now people have to start thinking about how to move this, or so that they don't have these issues. And I think it was only 2 years ago that or in Escazone, the river flooded there for the first time, and these are things that are changing, that people are noticing more. Things are happening more rapidly. So we did workshops for communities in the First Nation communities to understand
Paul, I think you might have froze. Terry, did we lose Paul on the call? Oh,
He's still showing there. And
okay.
I'm just checking his status. It actually says Paul off, although I'm seeing the icon.
Okay, he may just be having some technical issues. Ron and Stan, I know you work fairly closely with PETA. The point about assisting municipalities with climate change action plans, do you know very much about that piece?
Well, we did just interestingly have a meeting yesterday with John Summers on the Coastal Protection Act. It's something that's we've been discussing lately. Stan had mentioned our development standards report that we developed back in 2008. And we have also been made aware by Paul McNeil, who sits on our management committee, that the mandate has kind of come down to the municipalities to have a minimum set of standards in place that I guess would address climate change, among other things. So we have been discussing whether it's time to visit everyone with our development standards report again. And in talking with John Summers, he agreed that the development standards covers a much broader look at the topic than just the Coastal Protection Act. So we have some updating to do, I would say, on that document. And Bidooba is definitely involved in that process as well, so that we hope to support the municipalities in their efforts with that information.
Thank you for that update, Ron. Paul, are you back on the call?
Still don't have him, I guess.
We lost him.
Yeah, Your Worship, I don't see, Paul doesn't seem to be logged on anymore.
Okay, he must be having some technical difficulty. I guess.
Maybe I could take the liberty just to sum up.
Sure, no, that would be that would be great. Thank you so much.
Discussing some of the projects that Bidooba has done really effective work over the years. And it's recently the group has been rejuvenated and has participation from all the municipalities and First Nations around the island. So it's great to see. And it's really very similar to the Seppi table, although we have a larger group and reach with all levels of government there. But it's a table for all the municipalities and First Nations to sit together and discuss issues and bring those issues forward and work together to handle them. So we did want to take the opportunity to make the distinction between the Seppi table and the Bidooba table. But Bidooba also needs the support of all the municipalities as well to continue their fine work.
Thank you for wrapping it up in a way, I guess that so I know that Paul did mention that they were working quite closely with Inverness Council and Waikoma First Nation around their sewer treatment plant. So I guess in terms of broad scope, I guess they just work on a project per project type of a basis.
Well, again, it's a table for anyone to bring their issue to, and then
Right.
the support of everyone else. If everyone needs to get involved, or a few people can help out, it's rather than trying to do things in isolation, you know. And
Right.
Bylaw can access funding at times and
Sure.
support work if necessary. But generally, it's to kind of team people up and help partners come together.
Fantastic. Stan, is there anything that you wanted to add? I guess to BDOPA?
Actually, now BDOPA, like before, when they used to, before Paul finished off there, he was looking at some potable water and water conservation projects they were working on, creating of Budwallic Water Rangers up in Budwallic there, water balance project up in Member 2, CBR Member 2 runoff project they worked on as well. Other notable projects like dredging Silta was hampering boat navigation partnership with Environment Canada and Inland Waters. They worked on a project with that. They facilitated dialogue, like I said, MOU between Inverness County and Wigglebah to actually put together a joint submission to put a sewage plant that actually takes care of both communities, the town of Waikagama and the community of Wigglebah. So BDOPA was instrumental in putting that together. I've been working with UINR on this IPCA project as well. And then, like I was saying, they're drafting a 5-year plan, and they're looking at actually new projects now. One of the things that they applied for a grant was to actually looking at around the Bredor Lake here, we're having trouble with erosion all around the lake. So we're looking at maybe developing some type of project that would look at shoreline erosion. We're looking at maybe using reef balls and stuff like that. We've looked at this initiative for a while now. To try to save some of the land around the lakes that's falling back into the lakes there. So the problem we've been having is a lot of people have armor and stone around the lakes, but the properties adjacent to them are taking all the beatings. So that's one of the things that this new CPA will be looking at as well. So BDOPA will be instrumental in working with new communities, like your communities, not just the First Nations, but the councils as well, and looking at these projects. So looking at the sewage is a big problem with the lake now. It'd be nice to get some kind of project started where we can actually look at all the cottages around the lake and see who's got proper septic systems and that. Because there's stories going around of grandfathering around the lakes of people that be able to keep old cottages by knocking down like the building and just keeping a porch and build a cottage and grandfather in there straight pipe into the lake. So that kind of stuff we'd like to get looked at. And then actually BDOPA's got a website now, www.bdopa.ca. I'm actually back on the web again. I'm working to help, seeking to partner with federal, provincial, First Nation communities and municipalities as well to work on some projects together. And then he left, and then he's got his contact info at the end there. If you move to the end of the PowerPoint there, you'll see his contact information there.
You're muted, Brenda.
Thank you. That's perfect. So I guess in lieu of Paul not being able to continue the presentation, I appreciate Stan and Ron for stepping in just to complete the presentation. At that,
He just texted me.
Okay.
He's locked. He's it.
Oh, that's quite all right. Council, do you have any questions? I know that Stan and Ron are quite knowledgeable about BDOPA. Any questions that you may have? Okay, so I guess no questions at this time, but I would, on behalf of council, like to extend a thank you for coming and offering your insights and explaining what BDOPA does, as well as the great work of Seppi, and certainly explaining the concept of two-wide seeing, which I think is definitely the best way forward in growing our island and developing our island in a sustainable way. So thank you so much, and I'm sure we're going to be working on budget over the next couple of weeks, and we'll look at how we can support Seppi. Thank you, Stan, and thank you,
Thank you
Ron.
very much.
And
Thank
please
you.
give our best to Paul as well, and we apologize for him getting locked out.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, take care.
thank you.
You're welcome. Walalan. Okay, so next is council reports on assigned committees, and just wanted to let council know that I did circulate just a committee of the whole report. And if you do have any questions at any point, I'm happy to answer any of those. At this time, is there any updates that council would like to offer on any committee meetings or progress? Councillor Coyne?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Housing Advisory Committee had their first meeting to review terms of reference, as did the Economic Development Advisory Committee. The Housing Coalition had a meeting that we all attended, you and I and Councillor McQuarrie, I believe. And I think that's all I have to report for this month.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor McQuarrie, is there anything you'd like to add to any of those updates?
Your Worship, the Straight Richmond Housing Matters Coalition met on March 10th, and we had presentations from Fred DeVoe, the Executive Director of the Cape Breton Community Housing Association, and Christine Porter, the Executive Director at the Ally Centre of Cape Breton. We looked at submission to the Nova Scotia Affordable Housing Commission. Next meeting is the 10th of April. Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health, we met on March 11th, and most of the meeting was spent on preparedness for a meeting we're going to have with senior NSHA staff on actually this Thursday, March 18th. And as Councillor Coyne said, their first Housing Advisory Committee was last March 11th. Yeah, and so that would be my update.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McIver?
No, Your Worship, I have no reports.
Do you want to give us a bit of an update on the last waterfront meeting, maybe? Councillor McIver and Councillor McDougall?
Yeah, I can do that. Thought we'd done that one already, but the Waterfront Committee met, and they put forth a recommendation to Council to rename Boulder Park to Sunset Park, which Council accepted. We haven't met since then, the committee. They're still looking at putting things together for priorities and what's going to happen. So as far as buildings and rentals and what can go on the waterfront during the summer. So I think the next meeting they'll be moving on to some other bigger things that they'll be coming to Council with.
Thank you. I appreciate the update. Councillor McDougall, do you have any updates to add?
No, I was at the Housing Advisory Committee meeting as an alternate. I just kind of got up to speed on everything. And we had a SAT meeting, and things are progressing there. There's a change in the executive there, and there's some work doing there, some good work. They got a new bus here recently. And I was at the waterfront meeting also that Councillor McIver's talking about, and we're having another one, I think, on the 22nd. And that's about it.
Thank you. And Councillor McDougall, I think you and I think Deputy Mayor McQuarrie attended the Accessibility Committee as well. So really just getting started
Yes.
on that as well. But
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot that. There's too many committees, I guess. Yeah, no, you're correct.
Anyway, no, I appreciate all the updates that Council has offered, and we will definitely keep updating any progress that we make in any of our committees, and also kind of keep our 5 strategic priorities on our radar as well. And I know that Jason is being the champion for recreation and parks and active transportation, and we'll be talking about the terms of reference a little bit later on for that. That's just getting going. And I guess with that, there's no other reports. Any other committee reports from council? Everybody's good? Okay, perfect. We will move on now to our CAO reports. I'll hand things back over to Terry for those. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry about my camera. It's just not coming on right now. I'm gonna hand over the presentation to Paula Davis, Director of Marketing, Recreation, Engagement, and Culture. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I'd like to provide you an update with the pool. The busy March break. Happy March break, everybody. The Strait Area Pool continues on with its winter lessons. And as part of the offerings, we've had a really big interest in rentals. So we made application to the school board to be open on Wednesdays. As you know, right now it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So we have an additional day that we'll be able to capture some of those rentals and also the revenue to go with it. The aquatic participation by municipality is always of interest to see who our clients are, and the staff at the pool were able to gather the numbers, and we compiled them, and those are the percentages of usage. We see Port Hawkesbury coming in at 20%, Inverness at 30%, Richmond at 31%, Antigonish, and that's Antigonish Town and County, 13%. Guysborough 5%, and Mulgrave 2%. So we'll continue to track that for this session and bring it right up to the end of June and see where we are. As you are aware, we haven't been doing any performances the last little while. Our numbers are restricted down to 100. It's very difficult to make ends meet with those kinds of numbers and pay the artist a credible fee. So we're working in partnership with some of the other venue presenters in the province, and we're approaching CCH in Halifax to see if we can get some support to offset the cost of doing the presentation. So we hope to be able to hear about that in the next little while. We have as well developed a plan going in through Canadian Heritage. That application will be going in tomorrow. That's 100% funding, and that would be for an outside event. And as you can imagine, it's going to be very difficult to do anything at Gravel Green this summer in a non-ticketed way with those kinds of numbers. So we're looking at other options that we can pursue. And that lovely fox in the middle, you can see at the J. Franklin Wright Gallery. We have the latest exhibit of Kristinsky there right now, and that'll run for the next month and a half. Those items are for sale, so if you're looking for some lovely wall art, please feel free to drop by. I've attached a copy of the March break flyer. Staff have done a great job pulling programs together. We wanted to offer something for each day of March break for the children and families, and everything's going well. A lot of the events are fully subscribed as our numbers are restricted, and you must pre-register for those events. We've had our first walk. The next slide is our, that was our first snowshoe walk the other day. And while it's bitter cold out in the real world, when you get in the woods, it's quite sheltered. So the families had a wonderful time. Just a reminder that our representative volunteer for this year is Mary Johnson. Mary has over 30 years of volunteering in the community. We all know Mary from the food bank, but she's also worked very hard with the Anglican Church and Sunday school and done a myriad of things in the community. So we're absolutely delighted that Mary agreed to be our representative volunteer. One item I did forget to mention, thank the Works Department for, we have the sign installed over the Strait Area Pool. 40 years, it's never too late to do something. And also we put some signage, directional signage coming up Reeve Street and going down Reeve Street to tell people where to turn when they're going in, and the Works Department worked quick to get those installed for me, so much appreciated. So that's it for me for this evening. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Paula. Any questions for Paula or comments? I think everybody's good. Back over. Thank you, Paula, so much for all your hard work. And please pass on the compliments of council to the wonderful March break calendar. It's a pretty exciting and well subscribed by citizens. So thank you very much.
That's great.
Thanks, Paula.
We'll do so.
Okay, back over to you, Terry.
Thank you, Paula, and I'll hand it right back to Aaron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to go through my items 2, 3, and 4 because I'm looking for a resolution from council or a recommendation for a resolution for the debenture. So I'm just going to move that to the bottom of the list. So just some quick notes for my report. So the PVSC appeals period, that's for property assessments. The appeal period closed the end of February. So we currently have 15 active appeals of assessments in the town, and the value of those assessments is about 12.5 million. So there's a mix of commercial and residential accounts, but obviously the larger portion, because of the dollar value, the 12.5 million, that's coming from the commercial accounts. So I'll continue to keep council updated on those, especially if there's significant reductions to assessments, because that obviously impacts the revenue that we take in, because the revenue, as the assessment gets dropped, the revenue for those accounts is lower. Just on the joint IT project, we did have a kickoff meeting last week. IMP was the consultant that was hired, and they'll be providing us within the next probably 6 weeks a roadmap and costing of a potential IT shared services model. And we're also, looking positively that we'll be getting Municipal Innovation Fund funding to help offset the costs of the consultant, as well as some of the ongoing operating costs should we move forward with that endeavor. And just as you know, I did send out a draft of the budget today with an agenda for our meeting on Thursday. So the meeting is at 4:30. It's been posted online, and if any of the public wants to view that meeting, they can contact me for an invitation. And just the last piece, we do have a debenture on the Civic Center, our debenture number 26A1. It's due June 1st, 2021. It's in the amount of $625,000. So the way these debentures work, a lot of the times they're amortized straight line over a 20-year period. This one has a lump sum payout at the end of the debenture. So this one is for $625,000. And what we've done in the past, and especially with the interest rates in what they are right now, is refinance those over so that it's the same annual payment that we've been paying previously. So we are looking to amortize that over a 5-year period, or pay that off over a 5-year period, so that our annual costs don't increase. So I did attach a temporary borrowing resolution that I would like to move forward to the April council meeting for approval. And we need to have this into Municipal Finance Corp the middle of April. So looking for council's approval to move that forward to our April public meeting, and just looking to get your consensus on that.
Thank you, Erin, for that. Council, are you all comfortable with moving this forward for consideration at our next public meeting? Councillor Coyne?
Yes.
Councillor McIver?
Yes, Your Worship.
Councillor McDougall?
I am, yes.
Deputy Mayor McQuarrie?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Council's in agreement that we will move that forward for consideration.
And if there's any questions on the report other than that piece, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does council have any questions or comments for Erin at this time?
No questions, no.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Back over to you, Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Aaron. And I'll hand it over to Jason to do the engineering and public works report.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll provide everyone with a brief summary of the committee of the whole report provided last week. Starting off with our traffic sign report. We've since moved the traffic sign adjacent to the Port Hawkesbury Dental Building on Reeve Street Hill, and average speeds and 85th percentile speeds were provided in the report. Very typical numbers for Reeve Street as usual. Moving on, the Landry Lake utility, we've just recently taken ownership of the new utility vehicle for Landry Lake. It's a great truck. We're happy to have it, and staff are very pleased with it. So, and we've been able to put it to work plowing some snow recently as well, which is great to have. Additionally, the annual report to Nova Scotia Environment was submitted for the Landry Lake utility recently, and it's nice to report there were no instances of upset condition or regulatory exceedances for that facility. So, last week we closed a surplus equipment tender, which we had pretty good uptake for. So when I prepared this summary, it was before the deadline for the surplus tender, but we're happy to pass along that we did receive 4 submissions for those items, and we're able to move along 4 to 5 items, and folks are going to get some good use out of some equipment that really isn't a good fit for us right now, but we'll hopefully provide some others with some good use for the next number of years and put a little money back in the town coffers. And we're arranging delivery for those items later on this week. Staff training, we've been taking advantage of this time of year to really focus on staff training and taking advantage of any opportunities that we can to help staff obtain continuing education units for their regulatory certificates, and summary was provided of the recent training that we took. And moving along, Nicole has provided a very detailed update again on the solid waste program. The last 2 collections, the information was provided, collection 10 and 11. Again, Port Hawkesbury is performing extremely well with our diversion rates, and I think we're starting to become a bit of an envy of some other communities in this end of the province with those numbers. Nicole has since done extensive work creating educational and promotional materials and videos, and reaching out to commercial establishments and working with GFL, trying to be the liaison between GFL and some of our commercial establishments. In addition to that, she's been getting out and having face-to-face meetings with a lot of businesses in Port Hawkesbury, and there's a pretty long list that she provided in the latest update. And when face-to-face visits aren't possible due to COVID restrictions, she's certainly up for arranging phone calls, and she's done that. Public outreach to schools continues with Nicole, and she's constantly taking daily questions and from residents and kind of pushing the messaging on that front. Nicole's term with the town of Port Hawkesbury is going to be ending by the time of our next council meeting. So we've really enjoyed having Nicole with us over the last number of months, and she's done some really amazing work, and we're quite happy with what we've been able to accomplish, and we wish Nicole the best of luck with her future endeavors. Additionally, our public works activity summary was provided, and we're trying to make an effort to provide a little more detail to council on some of those items the last couple of months. So hopefully you're seeing a bit of change as we try to keep you updated in some of our activities. And staff had to respond to some pretty significant storms since our last committee of the whole. Probably our worst storm of the year on February 8th. And then, a few weeks after that, on March 2nd, we had a snowstorm / freezing rain event coupled with a water main break, all within about a 14-hour period. And, staff responded to those incredibly well. So, and that's the summary of our Public Works and Engineering Department. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jason, for your report. Does council have any questions? Councillor Aucoin?
Through you, your worship. Jason, what's the date that the apartment buildings in town and other businesses are to come online with the recycling?
It was actually over a year ago when the bylaw came into effect.
But so, I believe it gave an extension.
Correct. So there was an extension provided to commercial businesses to kind of phase in the clear bag and rather than black bag usage at commercial businesses and apartment buildings, and that was that because we were hearing from some building owners that they felt they could benefit from an extension because they wanted some time to work with their tenants to make sure that people were sorting properly and they had the proper collection bins set up at their establishment. So council was gracious enough to grant an extension to the end of March.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jason or comments? Okay, thank you, Jason. And please pass on to Nicole our council's compliments. I think she's doing wonderful work, and certainly her hard work is a testament to the measures of success with regard to diverting food waste into compost. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and back over to you, Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to echo what Jason had said, and thank you, Jason, for your report. But Nicole has done a significant amount of work over a very short period of time. On at a time, we desperately needed her on the rollout of our green card program, and she's performed well beyond expectations, and I'm sure anybody's expectations. So great, and also echo Jason's comment with respect to the work of our Public Works Department, especially on during our storms and managing snow clearing with water main breaks, and that's really something to be proud of, and we certainly are of them. So anyway, I'd like to hand that over to hand the last part of the report over to Gordy on facilities operations.
Thank you, Terry. Good evening, Your Worship, and members of council. Through you, Your Worship, I'll start with my report from the Civic Center. Hockey, believe it or not, is starting to wind down a little bit. We have spring hockey scheduled to begin April 5th and go into May 9th, with the possibility of going another 2 weeks if it's viable for the town. We have an energy manager hired, come on board with the town and other partners through Efficiency Nova Scotia. She started, her name is Ainsley Timmons. She started last week, March 8th, and she'll be with us for 10 weeks. She'll be auditing all town facilities and mechanics, looking for energy efficiencies, and we hope to see some good things come out of that project. We are still waiting word on our summer job program. Application was sent in January, and for all indications, it seems to be the identical program that was offered last year. So we hope to kind of repeat what we did last year with the numbers and the amount of work we were able to get done with our students. We are in the process of installing our fiber at the Innovation Center at the Creamery, getting that building another step closer to completion. The pools are open following Nova Scotia Public Health guidelines, and our fields and parks continue to be closed, although with our nice days, our playground is really busy, and even the other day, our multi-court was, there was basketball being played in our multi-court. So even though they're closed for the season, the facility are being used. So our new generators in place at the fire hall. We're waiting for our automated louvers to arrive. They'll be arriving on Monday, and we will have people in place to have that installation finalized. And we did meet, the Accessibility Advisory Committee met last week for our March meeting. We're just in the inception there of that committee. We hope to do some good things also, but we'll be providing further reports to council. That's my brief report this evening. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you so much, Gordy. Any questions or comments for Gordy this evening from council?
No questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gordy. I'll hand things over to Terry.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Gordy, for that report. Just to emphasize, we're very excited about the partnership with Efficiency Nova Scotia, the County of Antigonish, the County of Inverness, and the County of Victoria on that program. We will be very anxious to keep council up to date on progress on energy efficiencies found through the program. So very exciting program to start off, and a long time coming. And we've been talking about this for 3 years, so very exciting. So the last piece of the report is on bylaws and policies. And Your Worship, at our last meeting, we had indicated that we would have a separate meeting with respect to bylaws and policies, and that will be coming in the near future. We're just trying to get some new committees up and running, and which we'll talk about on the next section of the committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you very much, Terry. So did that conclude our CAO reports?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. We're moving on now to agenda item number 7, which is other business. The first item is policing priorities. Terry, did you want to cover that item?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So discussions with Staff Sergeant David Morin had indicated that he will be requesting the town of Port Hawkesbury consider identifying priorities for the town with respect to policing in our town. I put forward the priorities that we've identified last year, which is substance abuse, illegal drugs and prescription pills, community policing, and traffic enforcement. I will say that many of these priorities take much longer than the year. These priorities that we've identified are actually very consistent with the priorities around the province. But I'd ask council if they have, if they would like to identify other areas, or they can identify other areas and we can have a further discussion. We haven't had the formal request at this point in time. So just maybe at this point in time, just a heads up to council that the RCMP will be looking for us to move this forward over the next month or so.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions or comments for Terry on this item? Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, I think it would be worthwhile if we were to contact the RCMP and ask them to do a presentation to council as to progress around meeting those priorities that we've previously identified. So I'd like to put that forward for consideration.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That is a great idea, I think. Council, are you in agreement with that suggestion?
Agreed.
Thank you, Councillor McIver.
Agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne. Councillor McDougall?
I agree, but we discussed that at our policing commission already, that he would be making a presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other information required for this item, Terry?
No, thank you very much, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, so we'll move on then to the second item under other business. So I did distribute the SPCA letter request that came forward from the town of Stellarton. They are donating a piece of property for a new location for the SPCA. I understand, according to the letter, that the present building that they're using now is in disrepair, and they won't be able to use that in the long term. The letter is for support, so it's been distributed to council for information, and if council requires more information or wants to consider it, then that's certainly up to council. I guess any questions at this point? Is there any other information that council requires? I'm happy to reach out to the town of Stellarton if that's the case.
Yes, Your Worship. I wonder if you would be able to obtain some information in terms of how many situations that the SPCA has dealt with here in the town of Port Hawkesbury.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely inquire. I guess to elaborate on your question, we want to know, like, what is the service reach? Like, how are they participating in the town of Port Hawkesbury from their current location?
Yes, Your Worship. Yep.
Okay, I'm happy to do so. Any other questions or comments on this letter? Councillor McDougall?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm not sure I got the letter. Was that sent today, or when was that sent?
It's in our agenda package.
Okay, no, I never seen it, but I'll read it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Any other questions or comments or any other suggestion for information I can seek out? Okay. And if there is any questions or any suggestions, feel free to reach out anytime. I will email, I guess, the town of Stellarton to get a little bit more information. Our next item under other business is terms of reference for, I guess, terms of reference for Parks and Recreation. Terry?
Your Worship, if it's okay, I'd like to look at, because they're interrelated. There's
Sure.
some commonality here. I'd like to look at the amendments to the Housing and Economic Development first, and then we'll move on to a new terms of reference for recreation, parks, recreation, and active living. And so, but we'll start first with the items coming from our economic development meeting and our housing meeting. So during those meetings, we did a review of terms of reference. And what we found was there's some items that were brought forward for some improvements. And when we looked at those items, they really are consistent throughout all of our terms of reference. So what we'd like to do is look at those recommendations for changes and make those changes across all of our terms of reference. So they're really primarily administrative in nature. So the first one is with respect to membership, and the old terms of reference, or the existing terms of reference for the housing committee, indicates that in October of each coming year, an advertisement for public members whose term is to expire in the calendar year shall be placed in the local paper. The issue is that the local paper is only one of many sources of media that we would use. So we just so the recommendation is to make that more general. In this case, the change is, so instead of saying the local paper, we said that it will be posted. So in October of the upcoming year, an advertisement for public members whose term is set to expire in that calendar year shall be posted. Meaning that there'll be social media, all of our social media platforms, plus the paper, plus any other forms that we can get the word out. And we would like to be more creative on this in the future. So that's the recommendation for council on that. So maybe I'd ask for questions on that first change, and then we'll go to the other ones.
Thank you, Terry. Is council okay with that change?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor McIver. Councillor McDougall?
Yeah, fine, Your Worship.
Thank you. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next one is under meetings, and again, it's just it's a point of clarification, and this is with respect to persons who miss members who miss 3 consecutive meetings. When we say members who miss 3 consecutive meetings, will be deemed to have resigned. So we just a recognition that there's often legitimate reasons why persons would miss, and then so we just want to recognize that. And so the change would be the committee members who miss 3 consecutive meetings without a legitimate excuse will be deemed to have resigned. So it's a clarification around that, Your Worship.
Okay, is council okay with that change?
Yes, Your Worship.
Fine.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Terry.
The next one is with respect to a change in the confidentiality clause. And so we've made just a couple of additions because of some items raised from those 2 committees. And the change would be, and it's an add-on to the existing confidentiality clause, that printed confidential materials provided to members shall be returned to the town after conclusion of discussion on the subject matter. Should confidential information be provided to members in an electronic format, members are responsible to delete the material after discussions on the matter have concluded. That's a recommended change for all terms of reference with respect to those for this confidentiality clause, Your Worship.
Thank you, Terry. Is council okay with that change?
Agreed.
Yes.
No.
Okay, thank you.
The last change is actually specific to the housing terms of reference. It was thought that the items under the mandate were fairly specific and restricted, possibly restricted the work of that committee. So we've just changed the lead into that list of bullets under mandate to the committee from the committee shall, or I'm sorry, that work of the committee shall include, work of the committee may include. And that's from the recommendation from that committee, supported by staff.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Is council okay with that change?
Just a question. Just a question through
Sure,
you.
go ahead. Go ahead, Deputy.
Terry, was there not some additional wording there as well? Work of the committee may include but not be limited to? Was that the suggestion?
I was going by my notes on that. I was able to check on the others, but we certainly could. I think that's a very good suggestion, Your Worship. So if we move this forward, then we can make that alteration to work of the committee may include but not be limited to.
Yes, Your Worship, I can concur that was suggested, yes.
Okay, great. So I guess with that, with that minor amendment. Is council okay with that change?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Go ahead, Terry. Is there any other items?
No other items under that agenda item.
Okay, so I guess all of those changes would be applicable to all of our terms of reference for our existing committee work.
Except for the last one, which is specific to the Housing Committee.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So the next item is terms of reference for Parks and Recreation and Active Living. Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, Your Worship. Just a note that we've distributed the terms of reference for the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I'd at this time I'd ask for any comments from council if they are satisfied that this draft may be accepted, can move forward to the public meeting for acceptance, or to the first Parks and Recreation Committee for their review and then approval by council.
Thank you, Terry. I guess I'll open up the floor for discussion. We'll start with Councillor O'Coin.
Through your worship to Terry, I think if we're going to go ahead with this, I think we need to change it. Though we have the terms of reference for Parks and Recreation, I think we should add on to that name something along the active living line, or maybe active transportation, active living, to go in with the name on this committee.
To me, that sounds much more inclusive and would include work that's ongoing right now. So I appreciate the comment, Councillor O'Coin.
Thank you.
Any other comments or feedback with regard to the terms of reference for this new committee from council? Okay. So I guess, Terry, there seems to be consensus that we can move that forward for consideration to the public meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So the next item is a recommendation for the Waterfront Committee. Terry?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So this is an oversight on behalf of staff. So we have a volunteer that came forward for the Waterfront Committee, and that's Cher McDaniel, and staff would recommend that she be added to the Waterfront Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you, Terry. What is the wishes of council? Can we move this forward for consideration to our next public meeting? Councillor O'Coin?
Yes.
No problem.
Councillor McIver?
Yes, move forward, please.
Deputy Mayor McCrory?
Yes. Go ahead with that. Yep.
Councillor McDougall?
Nope, good, fine.
Thank you. Okay. So the final item under other business, there was a letter that was also distributed in our committee of the whole package as well. It's a request coming forward from Mike Viva with regard to lobbying to ensure that volunteer firefighters receive a 15% discount towards funeral costs. So council's, I hope, has had a chance to check out the request that has come forward. You're welcome to if there's any other questions, I'm happy to reach out to Michael Viva to get more information, or if there's any comments for council, we can definitely open up the floor for discussion. Councillor O'Coin?
Through you, Your Worship. I also received a phone call on this same letter, and it was for firefighters and search and rescue members. And the 15% discount they're looking for is from the province. He very clearly stated to me that he doesn't want a funeral home in Nova Scotia to lose any of their profit. He wants to lobby the government to have the funerals for volunteer firefighters and search and rescue be tax-free, and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Aucoin. Any other comments or questions with regard to this request? Councillor McIver?
No, Your Worship, I'll declare conflict on that.
Okay. Deputy Mayor McCrory?
Yes, Your Worship, I have no issue supporting that.
Okay, Councillor McDougall?
No, that's fine.
Okay, is there any suggestions from council on the manner of how we support this particular request? Would you foresee a letter of support coming from council with regard to this item?
Yes, Your Worship. Yep.
Okay, so what we can do is draft a letter that we can move forward for consideration for our next public meeting if council's okay with that suggestion.
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, perfect. So we just have one approved addition. So we wanted to have a discussion again about in-person meetings versus continuing in as we are currently with virtual meetings. The numbers seem to have dwindled for COVID at this point. So I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. What are council's thoughts on meetings going forward? I guess we'll start maybe Councillor McIver. Did you want to start the conversation? What's your thoughts?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have any concerns about meeting in person. The only question I would have on it is, are they going to be live streamed, our meetings? Because the only concern I would have is members in the gallery. But as long as our public meetings were with us together and it was live streamed and everyone was invited, I'd have no problem with it.
Thank you. I appreciate your input. Deputy Mayor McCrory?
Yes, Your Worship, I would support that going forward.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McDougall?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm going to rely on the province to make that decision on the numbers. If they say there's a certain amount, I think it's unfair to the public if they can't attend in person without being live streaming might be different. So until the province says we can do it, I'm happy the way we are.
Okay, thank you for your input, Councillor McDougall. Councillor Aucoin?
I'll echo Councillor McIver's comments. In person is fine with me, as long as we can live stream to the public like we're doing tonight. Yeah, I would be in favor of that.
Okay, so we will move this forward then to our public meeting to, I guess, to have a decision, further discussion and a decision with how we will move forward. And of course, at that time, we'll probably have a little bit more information with regard to COVID-19 in the province and the public health considerations at that time. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and feedback on that. And that concludes our additions. For future meetings, of course, as per usual, the first Tuesday of each month is our public meeting of council. So our next one will be April 6th, 2021 at 7 p.m., followed by our committee of the whole on the third Tuesday of each month, also at 7 p.m., April 20th, 2021. And with that, I would ask for a motion of adjournment.
Moved.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Aucoin. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McIver. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time, and we appreciate also